experts in the world, and they said, why didn't Congress talk to us? Didn't have a hearing on it. We didn't have one hearing on this. She put it on the floor, up or down. And that's not a good way to govern the country. This is an issue that will have long-term ramifications for the country. It seems to me we ought to be able to debate that in a democracy in the Congress rather than Pelosi saying, this is my plan and take it or leave it, I got the votes. You know, with a gun to our heads. Yeah.
This will be the last question.
Okay. There are many in the state, even in the party, that are clamoring for nullification of federal laws. And as a federal representative, I can understand that naturally there's a conflict between the state and the federal government. So I just wanted to get your take on that issue of nullification and even the 10th Amendment of the Constitution that they so often like to cite.
I believe the 10th Amendment. It basically says that the rights not given under the Constitution to the federal government are reserved to the states, and I believe in that. There's also the preemption doctrine in the Constitution. So there's a balance there. But I think I think the founding fathers, going back to what they envisioned, was not a king that they fought against that will dictate everything to the states, but rather a federal government that honors and respects states' rights. Going back to health care, there's I forgot which president, it was Truman, that said they're like laboratories, the states are. And they can, try their own health care experiments. And, pick and just try to figure out what is the best approach here. Rather than, what the tendency is at the federal level is to a quick solution and one size fits all. And at the end of the day, one size doesn't fit all. And then there are unintended consequences to every federal law passed. It happens across the board. And I think we need to be very respectful of the states. And I think, they wrote the 10th Amendment for a reason. I mean, it's not just conservatives making up the 10th Amendment. I mean, the founding fathers wrote it, and it says what it says. So, I'm not saying secede from the Union. But anybody, one other question? Yeah, this will be the last one. Okay. So I enjoyed it.
Back to national security.
Yeah.
The Fort Hood shootings were more than a little scary. And
Fort Hood?
Yeah. And I'm wondering. I know there was a lot of talk about why didn't the Army notice this guy sooner? Can you tell us what your thoughts about that? I mean, what needs to be fixed? What have they fixed? What are they not fixing?
Well, thanks for bringing that up, because we talked a lot about the economic state of affairs, but the national security is a big one. That's where my focus has been as ranking member on the Homeland Security Intelligence Subcommittee. I was at the ceremony where they had the 13 pairs of boots and the rifles and the helmet, and I saw two of the soldiers. I talked to a lot of soldiers who'd been shot by this guy, and I said, I'm getting these reports. We didn't know what the facts were. So I've been getting reports that he said Allahu Akbar, which means God is great. And that's what every jihadist says before they end up going on a suicide mission. And they said, yeah, he was screaming at me as he shot us. And to me, that was a bit of an eye-opener, because it goes to the intent and the motivation behind the killing. And then we found out the Joint Terrorism Task Force in Washington actually was aware of about 23 emails that Hassan had with the cleric in Yemen, the same cleric who trained the Christmas bomber to get on the airplane to blow it up. And that information was not shared with Fort Hood. And I talked to General Cohen at the ceremony. He was the commander of the Fort Hood. And I said, isn't that information you would have liked to have had, that a major at one of the largest military installation bases where we know that Al-Qaeda is targeting, wouldn't you have liked to have known that you had a major in your outfit that was talking to one of the top Al-Qaeda recruiters? And he said, yeah. He said, and he said, I don't know how many more Hassans are out there trying to infiltrate our military. And there are so many flags that popped up with him, and this political correctness, and we can't, my God, well, let's just pass him through the system and promote him, and that's what happened. Even though he's saying that his allegiance was to the Quran, not the Constitution. He said that he was going to be deployed to Afghanistan. He was against the mission in Iraq and Afghanistan. There are a whole myriad of flags that were going up on this guy. And just like the Christmas bomber, they dropped the ball on him. And I'm concerned about Obama not wanting to call it what it is. I called that an act of terrorism at Fort Hood because he killed 13 soldiers. And yet I got kind of criticized for saying that, but that's what it is. And this president just seems to want to bend over backwards to embrace the jihad world. And I don't think that's the right approach. I went down to Guantanamo and saw Khalid Sheikh Mohammed in his cell, and it was during prayer hour, and he was laying prostrate over his prayer rug to bow to Mecca, and it's spooky. I mean, he's killed 3,000 Americans, and now we're going to bring him and his whole gang into the United States for trial. When we just gotten to the point, we'd passed the Military Commissions Act, just before that in the Congress, and we were going to proceed with military trials because I believe he's an enemy of war, not a criminal defendant. That's just the way I see it. I mean, we can bring him into the United States, treat him as criminal defendants, and give them all the rights under the Constitution, or we can try them as enemies of war, which they really are, and have a military tribunal. And I think they're in a box because now the mayor of New York doesn't want Khalid Sheikh Mohammed coming to the city, and the governor doesn't want him, and the congressmen don't want him, and nobody's going to want these guys coming into their districts to stand trial. And it sends the wrong message. I mean, that closing down Guantanamo, that somehow that's going to change things. They're not attacking us because of Guantanamo. They're attacking us because of the Statue of Liberty. They're attacking us because of who we are and our freedom, and their hatred against us. And so I don't know if I went off on a tangent there, but it's an issue of grave concern. They test every American president in their first year since Clinton. 93 World Trade Center, Bush 9/11, and now I think this president's being tested as well. And don't think there are other people that were trained, not trained by the cleric in Yemen, because there were. There are other Christmas bombers out there, and that's why when the DNI, Director of CIA, and FBI were asked about the question, do you see an attack in the next 3 to 6 months? The answer was a potential attack with certainty. I've never heard the director of CIA or DNI say that with certainty. That tells me there's threat information out there. It's very specific that they spotted a vulnerability and they want to take down an airplane. That's why out there today the crash. When I got the news it was an intentional attack flying into the federal building, was a little scary, and we were concerned. Okay, what's his background? And we went into motion really fast to find out whether this was, what his motivations were. Fortunately, he's not tied to any terrorist organization, international.